Hey, welcome everyone to our next talk today. For this talk, we have Serge Koudoro, who's here from Indiana University. He's a research software developer at Indiana University. This is a position a little bit like my position here as a research scientist engineer at UW. It's sort of an academic software development position. He's been working for many years on diffusion MRI and pipelines for processing diffusion data, and that's what he's going to talk to us about today. Yeah.
I mute myself here?
No, don't mute yourself. Just leave it as it is. Yeah.
Okay, great. I just want to be sure. Yeah. So, okay. So, hi, everyone. Like Noah said, I'm Serge Koudoro, research software engineer at Indiana University. So, to tell a bit about my background and to talk a bit about me. So, before I got a master in computer vision quite a long time ago now. And after that, I work in industry for 1 year in Czech Republic, working on detecting biometry on fingerprint. After that, I moved back to Paris because I'm French and I'm born in Paris. So I moved back there where I work in a research lab in computer vision. I was already a research software engineer there, and I was building a library to connect with the industry. And after many years in Paris, I moved to US to enter to the neuroscience world and keep this job as a research software engineer. So I like a lot. What is a research software engineer? I like to say that our goal is to make just science simpler. It seems we lost the screen. Yeah. Is it
okay? I hope that it's just the HTTP connection. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, what is a research software developer? I like to say that our main goal is to make science more accessible to people. We are the link between researcher and industry. At the same time, we are the link with postdoc and students. So I like to have this multiple hat, where you talk to researcher, you get their paper, you understand the algorithm, then you make it very simple you teach it to the student, and you make it very simple for the industry, and the industry push it further. I think the perfect example is, today we talk a lot about AI, and I think the good example is a neural network. Neural network is there since the 40s, since the World War II. So it's quite a long time that you have a neural network, and it got popularized only in 2012. So almost 50 years later, 60 years later, by research software engineer, because they start to implement what research was proven. We have already all the algorithm, all the math about that, and make it big, more, I would say, geeky, and start to implement it in GPU just to make it faster for research, and then make it faster for the industry, and then the industry see how it works and take it back and move it to accelerate all the movement. So, and a lot of software library are like that. So it starts with research, then you have a research software developer who try to make it simple, accessible to everyone, and then the industry take it back and move it forward. So today I'm here to talk to you other fact about me. So I'm French, 2 kids, proud dad of 2 kids actually. What else? I like sport in general. My wife is Greek, so Greek by affiliation also. I don't understand my kid actually when they speak to their mom. So this is a fun fact. Otherwise, yeah, I like sport, I like traveling a lot. I like to be an expat, whatever the country. It's a really good feeling. And yeah, so, if you want to talk about, I like board game also. So if you want to talk about all this topic, whatever sport or travel or etc., I'm here for you. So let's talk about diffusion imaging. So who is familiar with diffusion imaging in the room to get an idea? Yeah, okay, many people. That's quite great, almost half of the audience. And who who use it a lot, like intensively? No, no one use a lot of diffusion MRI? Okay. Okay, so no, why it doesn't change? So yeah, so the goal of this talk, really is to give you a basic understanding of the fundamental of diffusion MRI. So why it exists, how it works, how to build your pipeline, and then put my hat of DIPY maintainer, who is a Python library that does diffusion MRI, and show you what we can do. So every concept that you will have here can be used, whatever the software. I think any software can do that in our field. And then later on, I will show you how you can use it in DIPY and what was the philosophy behind that. So here it will be split in 4 blocks. Understand the fundamental of diffusion MRI, explore DIPY command line, identify every single block and the math and the algorithm of diffusion MRI pipeline, and then build your own, how you can build your own with DIPY. I have a lot of slides, really a lot of slides, so I will try to be, I don't know how to, should I use that? Maybe.
Maybe,
yeah.
yeah, okay.
Let me,
Sorry, Zoom, we're having some trouble with the projector. Give us 1 second.
this one, yeah, this one. So yeah, I was telling you that I have a lot of slides. If you have any question, don't hesitate. I will be very fast to cover everything. And also, I apologize. Also, I will really oversimplify every concept. Okay, so I will really talk about. If you want more detail about a specific algorithm, you can refer to the specific paper. It's just to get to everyone who is not familiar a general idea. No. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. Just a small reminder of why we are doing all of that at the end. So the ultimate goal is to help doctors to stop to be predictive. So meaning that we don't want doctor to say, I think there is this, but we want them to say, I can see this microscopic change. And because I see this microscopic change, this happened. And if they can be more precise on what they are saying, it would be more easy to attribute a different treatment depending on the different pathology of the patient. So that's the ultimate goal. So stop saying I'm seeking. I know that medical is a science, but at the same time, there is no general truth in this field. And we want to help them to be more precise. So to get this precision here, we will need to know more about the microstructure, which is the neuron that you can see here. And to get all these neurons and these parts of the brain, we need to generate the connectome of the brain to understand the different parts of the brain and which region connect to which region. And getting all this information will be able to help the doctor to go more in detail. So to get this connectome, we have multiple techniques today. The first one is the polarized light of imaging, so PLI. So this technique is very simple. You just project light on your tissue, and depending on how the light reflects to your tissue, so move one side and one on the other side, you will get an idea of the direction of your tissue, because the tissue, especially the myelin, respond to this light, and will be able to get the track of your brain. So this technique works very well, but the main problem is you need you need a post-mortem brain. So this is for ex vivo. So this is a technique that is still used today because it helps to create the literature, the ground truth, kind of. Then you have the second technique, which is the OCT. So the OCT, this is what you have. Oh, okay. Still, I'm not sure what is going on. Sorry for Zoom. We have a problem with projector that move. I don't know what to do.
All I've been doing is we've done this wire.
Do I touch something?
It's hard to imagine that. Yeah, okay. I don't know.
Okay.
Sorry.
So we will come back. So I want to say the OCT. So the OCT, actually, we use it very well for our eyes. It can work also for brain. So the OCT work like ultrasound. Okay, so ultrasound, we send wavelengths on our body, and we see how much we absorb those wavelengths, and we see the difference between that for an ultrasound. So the OCT is the same. We send light on your body, so on your eyes, and we see how much your eyes absorb the light. And here for the brain, we check how much light is absorbed by the brain, and we see the difference. And this give us this difference give us an information about the tissue. So OCT work super well. The main default is we cannot go deep on the brain. We have just a small surface of the brain, so we can just do few millimeters. Few millimeters inside the brain. And due to that, it's not really used. But there is a lot of research and it's progressing well. So let's see how it goes. But for now, it is not used a lot. Since he just attack first only a small part of the brain. You can get also a very high resolution, and all this resolution is in a micrometer and give really a very good data. So the last technique that we are talking about today is diffusion MRI, developed in the 90s. When you think about it, it's only 30 years. It's quite recent. So this has the particularity to be in vivo, so which is more powerful than the other technique. And but the drawback is since before we could work in micrometer, now we work in millimeters. So if we work in the highest resolution, it means that we have less information, less precision, and this is a drawback, but that we try to overcome actually today.
If it goes out again, I'm going to try to put up to mine and share because mine was working. Okay.
Okay.
Keep going for now until
it works again. Okay. So what does the diffusion magnetic resonance imaging? So what we are doing is we're trying to modelize the water movement in the different axon, and this water movement in the axon will represent the fiber path of our brain, simply. So let's go more in detail concerning the DMRI. So how did it start? So it starts with this simple experiment named the pulse gradient spin echo. So the idea behind this experiment is based on a molecule that you have in a specific non-constrained space. We just put a smaller push, a smaller radio frequency interaction, and we see that our molecules start to get excited and move around. And when we put another gradient strength in the opposite way, we can think that slowly come back to the initial state. So this experiment was really a huge discovery to see that we can put back an element that we excite. We can put back to his initial state an element that a molecule that we have excited, and this brings to the this equation that you have here. So we have SB over S0 equal to this exponential. So the exponential S0 here represents our molecule as a state 0. Okay, so the molecule S here represents like signal. So when you take the signal at the state 0 and you multiply it by the exponential here that represents the signal loss, okay, you obtain the final signal SB that you have here. So here B represents our B values, our gradient, which in reality is all the parameter of our scanner. So you have, for example, here the delta, the time between the two pulse gradients. You have also the G, who represent the gradient strength that you can see, etc., etc. And our ultimate goal is to find the D here, our coefficient that modelize our signal loss. Okay, so this has been formed in the 60s by Stekjal. Sorry to destroy the name. Apologize to this person. And then later on have been popularized by Basser and Co. Only in 1994, so almost 30 years later. So 30 years later, by just adding a small logarithmic in this expression that you saw above, we discovered that this signal loss that we were seeing on this experiment was actually the water movement in a specific axon. And this signal loss, by adding the logarithmic, could be represented, can be fitted as a linear model. And back then, in 94, fitting a linear model was very simple and very easy to represent. So this is where DTI started and to appear. So when we do this linear fitting, we obtain the D, our coefficient, but this coefficient, which was, if we want to get more information on how the water move, since we discovered this is we needed to have a specific representation, and this representation has been chosen to be the tensor. So why the tensor? So the tensor at the end is just a ball, like the water diffusion, and this ball could be like an ellipse, and can be just in an ellipse in a different direction, and can show you. Yeah.
Sorry, Zoom, we're having projector troubles. Just a second.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's take this here. Okay, so hopefully, I don't, well, okay. All right, if this continues to blink out, okay, for now, I think it may be okay. I'm hoping my laptop is fine. If this continues to blink out, we'll just have to have people go on Zoom to see the slides. Sorry, but hopefully this works.
So okay, so D, like I said, this is our diffusion coefficient, and this D can be decomposed as a eigenvalue and vector to describe the shape, the direction of where the water is going. What's going on here? Ah, okay, okay. So why no, it doesn't come?
That's not the right slope.
Sorry. I try to understand why I don't see what's going on here. Maybe because he doesn't see the second screen is disturb.
Oh, you're totally right. Yeah, we just don't connect to your second screen. Sorry.
Okay.
Ah,
Okay.
so the options are either to no, then you won't present view. Yeah. Okay. So I think given the scenario here, I'm just going to plug this back in, and then for those of you in the room, you may need to log on to Zoom if this keeps blinking. Just remember to mute yourself before you log into Zoom. Hopefully this will come back most of the time, but
yeah, he came back now.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry everyone. We'll file a report.
So, like I was saying, so why do we need a tensor representation? So the principle is really to distinguish these two cases. So these two cases is when the water doesn't move and is a sphere here, or in the other cases when the water moves slightly and start to represent a tensor. We cannot see the difference on x and y, which are the position of how does it move. But if you take the diagonal of this sphere element, this spherical element, here now you have a better idea of how the water move. So that's why we represent this as a tensor. And here you have an example in 2D, but in reality we have 3D and we have much more element. So then from this description of a tensor, you can start to get some specific map. Here, the FA and the MD map. So you can see here you have the math equation of it. We are taking mainly the eigenvector and eigenvalue to describe those maps. And those maps are very useful for detecting the neurodegeneracy, for example, for the FM map, and detect tracks and connectivity pattern compared to the mean diffusivity that you see on the right here, to give you an idea of the tissue change that you can have here. So after those discovery, we'll start to see some software popping up. The first one was FSL that I suppose many of you are using. So this is a library from Oxford that has been developed since 2000. Then arrived Camino that now still not, it still exists. It's not, I'm not sure it is maintained, but it still exists. From London, we're still in the UK there. Then Tortoise from NIH here in US, who appeared in 2007. Then in 2009, from Australia, you have MRTrix1, who appeared. And Explore DTI in 2009 also, who appeared to give, this was a revolution, starting to integrate user interfaces and not just script and CLI. So this is where DIPY arrives the last in 2011. And the main reason why DIPY arrived, because actually all these tools are very great and we're doing already a good job in this field. But it came out of a frustration of back then in the 2000s, labs were not sharing code. So sometimes you could use FSM Camino and a slight difference in DTI, and you couldn't understand why. And when you were trying to send contact as researcher, either they didn't have time, or they didn't, or they couldn't explain, or they didn't want to share the code, etc., etc. So this period of the year, of this decade, was very complicated. I even remember in another film, in image processing, it was the same philosophy. We don't want to share. We don't want people to know what we have, and we want to be in advance. I put quote. So it was a bit complicated. So all this frustration provoked make a group of researchers decided to create a new toolbox with an open philosophy. So they chose Python back then, because at the period Python was growing, has already this philosophy of making everything open. And this is where the core value of DIPY appear. So DIPY had to be free. open source, develop all the state of art of the diffusion MRI algorithm, and be self-explaining. So now, if you go to DIPY open source, you can read it, and code should be very easy to read, and algorithm should be straightforward for any user. This philosophy, of course, brings some constraint, which is speed. More you try to optimize the code to be faster, less is readable. And this is something that we move after later on to accelerate the code. So DIPY has been created in 2011. It was with an international team with Eleftherios Garifalidis, with who I'm working right now in Indiana University, but you have also Ariel Roquem, who co-organized with Noah this workshop. And you had at the end 5-6 lab who was collaborating. It was back then Cambridge, Stanford. They were in the University of Mexico. Many people from different countries that was contributing in DIPY to make this happen. And actually, the fun fact on DIPY is if you look at the code history, you can see that you have the creator of scikit-learn was working on DIPY before quitting and creating scikit-learn. You have the creator of scikit-image who was working, Stefan Randamal, who was working on DIPY before moving and creating scikit-learn. Same for Nightbabble, Matthew Bright was working on DIPY before moving to his own package for Nightbabble because it was not making sense to have everything in DIPY. It was better to split on multiple libraries and to be more specialized. So DIPY is really very, very old and is a mother of multiple library. People don't know that, but it's important to precise it. So our focus, of course, diffusion MRI, but also now we start to expand to medical imaging in general by adding more algorithm that is useful for multiple domain, like the image registration, denoising, or visualization, or tissue segmentation. All of these are in DIPY. So here a quick overview of the DIPY ecosystem. So I already said that DIPY uses a lot of core Python library, which is scikit-learn, scikit-image, TensorFlow, CVXPY, NumPy, of course. All these core algorithms are useful, and we have a very close collaboration with all of this library. So I won't go in detail, but also we can see that we have a growing ecosystem in DIPY that's coming. So DIPY with GPU, of course, DIPY for microstructure, DMIPy, etc., etc. So from this view, I want to just remind this will be the only 2 slides about very going deep to what is a research software engineer. I will talk about a TRL, so technology readiness level. So this term is coming from the NASA. So the goal is to describe every single step going from the idea until the launch where people are on the moon. So you try to define every step to represent where is your project, your engineering system. And this is what we use in DIPY, and this is what many libraries under the hood use to get an idea where they are. So usually at the beginning, you have the TRL1, the literature review and the basic idea, and then you continue slowly to grow up in TRL. I would say that in most labs in this world, you go until TRL 4 maximum, I would say. 4, we will start to share the code publicly today and make it works. I would say before it was TRL for sure, it was TRL even 2. It was just a paper and no code, nothing. This is where a research software engineer arrives. Of from usually TRL4, we start to make sure that we respect all the strong software engineering principle and that we have A/V testing, that A/V documentation, we can start to build a community and that the software is sustainable. So this TRL5, 4.5 here, this is very important in the software engineering cycle. And this is where research software appear. And then later on, you have all these stage. I would say that today DIPY is in TRL7, which is quite high, meaning that we are widely spread among different labs, which is great, and we are also used in clinic and hospital. But we would like to be more accessible to different audience to succeed to reach the TRL8. So let's dive deep to what are the components of a DMI pipeline now that you got a general idea. So the first thing that you have to do, of course, in a DFV, when you get your data from the scanner, they arrive as a DICOM, and in this field, no processing is done directly in DICOM. So you need a tool to convert this DICOM to Nifty, which is a standard in this field. And there's this amazing tool named DCM2Nix that I recommend to everyone. So when you get your data from the scanner, and you can do that. So of course, some software like Matrix include directly that call this command line under the hood. So they have their own command line, but when they call I don't remember, under the hood they call DCM2Nix, and I think every software actually call this software under the hood. So either you call it through the software or either you call it directly. So a quick word about how to install DIPY. Since it's the Python library, you can just use a pip install. If you use Conda, when you see Conda force DIPY, and if you want the official developer version, this is a risky one, meaning that it's built every 2 days, and it includes sometimes some bugs since every 2 days. But you have all the latest and advanced version. You can use this developer version. So a diffusion MRI pipeline always starts with a pre-processing step. This is the most important part, I think, in diffusion almost. Yeah, this is really the most important part. So the goal is to standardize your data, knowing that your data are always different between every single scan and different scan. You need to do this processing to standardize your data. Then after you have the fiber modeling, where when we have standardized data, we want to modelize the water movement of the brain. Okay. When we have the modeling done, we move to the fiber tracking to get the full connectome of the brain. And then you have the post-processing when you start to do some statistics, discover some bundle, and etc. etc. You have a term named tractometry today instead of post-processing to get some statistical analytics along the bundle. So I will go through every single step to explain how every single step works in detail. And like I say, I will try to be very fast on every algorithm that we don't spend too much time. You get a notion of it.
So I have a theory here. It's changing the refresh rate and resolution every time. At least there's the message.
Yeah.
Do you have the ability to try to make the external
to make the what?
External screen like 800 by 600 or something like that?
Let me see how. screen.
Sorry, Zoom. Just for context, the projector is blinking like every few seconds and shutting off his slides, and then coming back. And so you can't see that on Zoom, but we're trying a quick hack to fix it.
No, it's not a screen. What is
I think up here you can go to so if it might work if you mirror, but that would lose your
system settings? And
display.
here, display, where is it?
I think you can search up here.
Here.
Yes, so yeah. So yeah, see if you can select like one of the others, like 1280 by 800 or something. And I'm just hoping that that makes it a little more stable. Okay, we'll find out.
Yeah. Okay. Let's
Okay, if not, it is what it is.
okay. Okay, let's hope. Okay. So just as a reminder, this is the full pipeline. Every software follow this pipeline. There is no exception of pre-processing, fiber modeling, fiber tracking, and post-processing. I will emphasize to me, and I think in general, the most important step and the most complex one is the pre-processing one. When you succeed to have really a very good pre-processing, all the other steps are quite straightforward. So if you have to spend time with your data in Diffusion MRI, spend time in pre-processing, make sure that you have a good standard here at the output. Okay, and then all the rest will flow quite easily. So currently in DIPY, of course, we have more than 50 plus, I would say even 70 plus, almost 100 CLI that are categorized in different elements. So pre-processing, reconstruction, tractometry, and tractography, but I will go through all of that. So why pre-processing? Like I say, the goal is really to standardize, to have one standard in any of your data. Whatever the scanner produces, whatever the scanner version, the scanner brand, your protocol, at the end, you just want one standard for all your data. And for that, you have different steps that you can process. So at the beginning, you want to reslice, you want to denoise, you want to remove the Gibbs unringing, a bit of motion correction to clean, and a bit of bias field correction. You have the API correction also. You have the brand extraction. You can register it to a T1 image. This has all the classical steps that you can see over different software. So let's go to every step to explain what they are. And yeah. So let's start with the reslicing. The reslicing is super easy. Is some scanner produce a volume with different voxel size. So instead of being isotropic, meaning having the same distance everywhere, being 1, 1, 1 or 2, 2, 2, they are highly anisotropic. They can be 1, 1, and 7 in Z, for example. This is a problem. This is a huge problem. So this is an important step because the reality is, I would say 90% of the algorithm, they don't work on an isotropic voxel. If you make them work, yeah, you will have some results, but there are high chance that they are completely wrong. Every example or every algorithm that are implemented is always on isotropic voxel. So this is the first step that you always have to do, and you always have to check in your data. Are my data isotropic? If not, we have a command line named DIPY reslice. Some people call it resample. This is the same idea, is how to make one voxel uniform. So here I just show quickly the command line that we name DIPY info that help you to get some ideas of your data. So you get the data size, how many volume, how many gradient you have in your data, the coordinate system, and of course the voxel size. So here you can see 222 is very isotropic. So you can go ahead in your processing. If you enter to this case where they are here slightly anisotropic, you need to reslice them to make sure that your data are the same voxel everywhere. A small information, small trick of understanding reslicing: when you have anisotropic voxel. For example, if you have 117, you don't want to bring your Z line 7 to 1, because if you do that, you completely deform this voxel, and it's really not good. So usually you have a small formula that you want to go in the middle ground. So here approximately 4, 5. So you bring the 1 to 4, the 7 to 4, and this gives you a much more homogeneous voxel. So this is really important. And then when you are in 444, if you want, you can downslide, you can reslice again to be in 111, but usually it's not necessary. You just want them to be all uniform. So when you have uniform voxel, denoising. So the denoising is very common in any field. It's not specific to diffusion imaging. Every domain needs a denoising step. And the denoising are split in usually 4 categories that we use in diffusion MRI. So you have the first category, who are like NN means, meaning a self-similarity category. You have also another algorithm, DM3D, the block matching. So the idea of self-similarity is you take a region on the image, and then you look at all the patch around this region, okay? And you see how it is similar to your patch in the middle. When you do that, you attribute the center of the voxel to what is the most similar. So globally, this is how all these algorithms work. There is some trick to be faster, there is some trick to modify the comparison, but it's really the huge principle of the self-similarity algorithm. So they work quite well on different image, but in diffusion imaging, we don't usually recommend this type of algorithm. They are fast, but they are not reliable. Yeah.
Could you explain the difference between denoising and like smoothing and like?
So
I know they're different. I've never done this, so I'm not sure I understand.
yeah, I know. So yeah, denoising, like it's explained on a self-norm, you try to remove every random noise in your image, okay? Compared to smoothing, here usually you remove a specific frequency of your image, okay? Which create this smooth effect between you kind of have a linear regression, kind of, to or Gaussian, to really make sure that there's not a huge difference between the pixel before and the pixel after, the neighborhood pixel. I don't know if it is clear enough.
I guess, is the results similar?
No, they are not at all similar.
Okay.
Because on the smoothing, you will see kind of a blurry effect.
Yeah.
Which shouldn't appear in theory in denoising at all. It appears sometimes, but it's very rare. Normally, it shouldn't appear. So the second category is the low rank approximation. So here you have all the family of LPPCA, MPPCA, etc. So all the PCA technique. So here the goal is from a matrix of data, okay? You try to find the redundant information, and you try to create a smaller matrix of data with just the relevant information. So that's the idea of the low rank approximation. Like I say, I oversimplify. We can go more in deep if needed. That's not the goal right now. So currently, MPPCA in this field, in diffusion MRI, is a kind of the reference of the field. Everybody uses it because it works very, very, very well on a different scanner, and it provides quite good result. The next category is patch to self, so statistical independence. So here, the main principle is saying that if you look at different volume, so different gradient of your DMRI, Between volume, the noise is statistically very independent, meaning that the noise will be different in the next volume and will be different in the next volume, but the signal in theory should still kind of being the same. So taking from this, starting with this knowledge, we try to self-learn. So self-learning with our own volume, what is a noise and what is not a noise. So we take the first volume, we look at all the other volume, we use that as a predictor, and then with that we can evaluate what is a noise or not. So this on good resolution data works super well, very well. Actually, it's even better than a PPCA. But for with data with few volume, few gradient direction, you can see that the results start to be less good than MPPCA. So here you have already a choice depending of your data. If you have a ton of volume, a very high resolution, or you have a poor data and a few resolution. Also, we discover, we don't know why yet. We are looking at it. That the patch to side doesn't work well on Siemens scanner, but it works super well on all the other scanners. Why? Maybe because the Siemens generate a different type of noise, and we need to look at what is this type of noise. And then you have the last category, which is a sparsity with the KSVD. So this is something that is not really used in our field. So I won't talk about it, and we didn't implement it since it doesn't give a good result in our case in diffusion MRI. So I should have put an image to show denoising example. I can show you that later. So then the next step is a Gibbs ringing. So what is a Gibbs ringing? So MRI scanner, as you know, as some of you know, MRI scanner are based on a Fourier coefficient. Okay, so since it is based on Fourier coefficient to reconstruct the image, you have a multiple. It's a bit like the radio, actually. So you know that the radio that you listen is one signal that can be decomposed in multiple signal. Okay, and sometimes when you succeed to catch a radio, you still catch another signal that you didn't want. This is what is happening here in Gibbs ringing. So when we decompose our main signal in smaller signal, we see that we have some decomposition that we didn't want and that appear here. So because of that, you need an algorithm that just remove those type of signal, and it's quite easy to do. So this is the goal of Gibbs ringing. This is something that is optional. This is a step that is optional because you don't see it. It's really dependent on your acquisition and if you see them or not. Next step, motion correction. So motion correction, I think, is one of the most obvious steps for everybody, because everybody knows that when you are in an MRI scanner, you are not static, you move. So you can see that you have some movement between in volume, between each volume. So when you do one gradient and someone move and another gradient, someone move, you need to make sure that all the gradients are aligned. And also with baby, usually you also have movement in one volume, in one slice. You can see that on the within volume here in this slice. And this is something that needs to be corrected. So for that, you use image registration. So by you doing usually an affine transformation, and then you can add symmetric deformatic registration. So this is well known, and unfortunately it takes time to do, but it's working well and it's kind of mandatory. Then, of course, you have the eddy current correction that you see everywhere also. So the eddy current correction are circular electric current induced by the conductor of the scanner. You can see what effect you have on this picture that you have here. So to correct this is still quite easy. As you can see, it's very easy to see in this image, dynamic image. You have to correct two things when there is an eddy current correction. You need to correct first the movement. We already have an algorithm to do that, which is affine or symmetric registration. And you can see that there is a big intensity shift also. So actually, to correct eddy current correction, it's just correcting intensity and doing an image registration at the same time. So in FSL, they have an algorithm named FSL eddy current. In DIPY, we don't have any CLI for that because since we know the math and the theory about that, you just need to apply a bit of image rigid registration and an intensity correction, and you get the similar result. So yeah, that's why we don't have a TCLI actually. We discover also that when we use a patch to self, who does already a small correction in the noise, but also does a small correction, and we combine with image registration, we get also an excellent result.
Can I ask about that?
Yeah.
Question back to you. Eddy cell seems to be the standard.
Mm-hmm.
And our tricks will wrap around that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But you're saying you don't do that, you do regular motion correction and maybe the skewing or whatever, and just sort of takes care of it.
Exactly. Yeah. So for the audience, to repeat the question, the attendee, I don't know your name. Sorry. Sorry.
Sam.
So Sam was asking, was saying that in M-Matrix, M-Matrix was wrapping FSL eddy current correction, and what I'm saying is we don't need to do that. We just need to do a registration and an intensity correction, and yeah, my answer is yes. Well, if you do that already, you get actually a very good result to do that. Of course, FSL does extra stuff that might get slightly better result, but I would say it mainly depend on your data. And in our case, we saw that on many data, just doing this intensity correction combined with the rigid registration, it works very fine and it works very well. So yeah. So the next thing is the brain distortion. So you see, we accumulate every artifact from the scanner, and we need to clean all of that before doing any path processing. Here, the brain distortion is very common. This brain distortion is very common when you are close to bones, so the nose and etc. When you are close to air, also when you do a fast scanning. I know that scan time is very important for clinician. So sometimes you need to scan very fast, and this bring this kind of distortion that appear in DMRI or in T1. And this needs to be corrected. For that, currently, I think I would say the state of the art to do this correction is FSL top up. Everybody use that, which does a really great job, but is way too slow. And for us, it was really a problem. We couldn't stand that this was so slow. And FSL decided to when they use top up, if you see under the hood, they take it as a registration problem, like before. And they do different steps. I won't go in detail. They do different steps in registration to make this deformation happen and do this brain distortion. So this year, we decided to tackle the problem in our lab, and we have a new technique that we name SUCOR. Much faster, you see, 23 times 5 faster to do this distortion correction. So We do that really in second for example, the HCP data take a really few seconds, and we didn't optimize that, and it does it on a laptop, classical 8 giga memory, very efficient. And we decided to see it in a different way. So instead of an image registration problem, we took it as an optimal transport problem. So this is another type of theory, and because we tackle it differently, we get this kind of result. So unfortunately, it's not yet on DIPY. It's working well, but it's not yet on DIPY because we are waiting the student to have the paper out. But if you want to try it, you just need to contact him. So I put his email here on his website. You contact him, and he will share. He will try to process to show you some result and see if it works well. So hopefully, by the end of the year, this new algorithm will be on DIPY, and I hope it will help the field to process faster this problem. Next, of course, the brain extraction. This is a mandatory step. We don't want any skull in our data. And strangely, people believe that brain extraction is something simple, but it's been 50 years and we still didn't have a single algorithm that does a great job. So it's much more complex than we think. And everybody have trouble we have solution, but it doesn't work on every single data. So in DIPY, we have, of course, DIPY brain mask, and you can select your method. You can select the median also. The median also work well on diffusion images. It doesn't work at all on T1 image. What it does, it takes the histogram of your data, and then from this, it try to see the variance of the histogram and decompose your histogram in different parts, and you have the segmentation. And actually, it works very well on DMRI, but it's not enough usually. Then you have EVAC Plus. This is an in-home, this is a DIPY student who did that for T1. And you have SynSeg that is very well known, forgot from which is FSL. We just re-implemented it because it's working well also. So we have these two methods are based on deep learning. They does a great job. Me personally, I'm really not fan of deep learning, so I won't comment too much of it. But this is a personal opinion. In general, I don't like deep learning in medical imaging. So that's a personal opinion. I feel like it makes sense. Deep learning makes sense and is amazing in other field. A stop is a stop. We choose this color and it will never change. It makes sense, deep learning here. For traffic, for medical imaging, where everyone in this room is unique. We saw many times that deep learning make a mess when you see something not usual. So you need to retrain it, and to retrain it, you need power compute, etc., etc. So you can, But this is my opinion. Do whatever you want, but it is useful. So you have to use it for classical. If you want LC, you know that your brain is LC, this database, you know perfectly your database. Yeah, go ahead and use those methods. If you have some doubt about your database or you work on some pathology, I will be very careful with those methods. Bias field correction. So we are still in pre-processing. So here the goal is simple. It's just to correct the intensity level of your image. So the intensity is not homogeneous in the whole brain most of the time. So we have different methods to do that, to make sure that every single pixel makes sense in the whole brain. So for this, we have 3 methods. So you have the N4, that is very well known and used everywhere. You can use a polynomial fit. So you take your signal and you try to fit a polynomial, or you have the B-spline which is the same principle, but instead of being on the whole image, you do it by neighborhood. So all these three techniques works very well, knowing that N4 is much more slower than the two other. I believe, and after testing, we tested in a lot of data. If your data is bad quality, is really useless to use N4. Is like using a huge weapon for bad data. So B-spline is very good. Actually, N4 use B-spline at the beginning and then do some iteration. But if you have really good quality data, it's a no-brainer. Go with N4 and it works very well. So in DIPY, we have the polynomial and B-spline implemented. The N4 we use external library because I mean the N4 algorithm is very complex and it doesn't worth the time to implement it compared to the data we have. So we'll let it to ANS and ITK. So of course all the other library that we know use ANS and ITK for doing that. So preprocessing is a huge topic. I could continue a long time like this, but I have other stuff to talk about. You can see this amazing paper that's been written, I forgot the year, 2022, that describe all the artifacts that you can encounter in diffusion MRI and how you could resolve it. They give you some clue. So you can see that there is really a ton of artifacts. And I'm not joking when this is the most important step in diffusion MRI before going further to clean your data and to standardize it. So we standardize it. And everything is clean. I want to talk just a quick word about data harmonization. So this is after you standardize your data and you are happy for one scanner. The problem is that when you have all your map for one scanner, if you try to do it with another site in another scanner, you can have a different type of intensity, etc. So you need to harmonize around all the studies. So we have there is a different algorithm that exists, combat, rich, or dictionary learning, or deep learning approach, of course. The most used currently is combat. Combat works on all our map, FM map, MD map, etc. Okay, and they try to homogenize all these metrics before you go further because those maps are used later. Sometimes you don't want to homogenize with feature metrics and you use a rich method that should work directly from the scanner. So when you have your data, your raw data, you try to harmonize this raw data. So you use rich at this level and then later on. So this is something that is used a lot, but I don't think here is a huge topic. So now that we did the preprocessing and we did the harmonization, if you work on multiple sites, let's go to the fiber modeling. So now that we have at the end a clean data, let's modelize the water on your brain. Oh, how did I do that? So in DIPY, we have more than 30 models to modelize your brain. As you can see, you have the classical one, DTI, then CSA that came after, then CSD, then DKI, etc., etc. There is a very long list of models implemented. Usually the big question is how to pick one. Which one should I pick? So a bit of theory. Because of this list of models, you have two types of model. You have the phenomenological model, which represents the signal without making any assumption. And you have the mechanistic model, who this time we make so much assumption on the microstructure, saying that there's a sphere here, there is a stick, there is a ball, there is a whatever. And based on this assumption, we try to fit the model. So here I will not talk about the mechanistical model. Now they start to be trendy, but I will stay focused on the phenomenological model where we don't do any, we don't assume any mechanism. So in this phenomenological model, they are split in two categories. So the first category, the Gaussian diffusion modeling. So here, this is what we saw from the first experiment with DTI, where we assume that our signal follow Gaussian distribution. Okay, so it works on a free, let's say free environment, and then you have an evolution, a progression of this, which is a DKI, which extend the number of parameters. So before we had to guess only 6 parameters of our tensor. Now we need to guess 15 parameters. So for obviously it's more complex and more long, but it's more correct because these 9 extra parameters describe the microstructure. So we don't assume that we are in a, we use the kurtosis to assume that there is a structural component inside and not just and that the water is in a constraint, which makes sense. His constraint is his axon and the fiber. And by applying this constraint, of course, we had the water can move only in a specific direction. And this is what we describe in DKI with the kurtosis component that you see here. So now we don't follow exactly Gaussian distribution. You have a non-Gaussian part that is taken into account. And that is important. Then you have the second category, which is the Orion distribution modeling, which you have CSR, CSD, and all the other one, where here every single voxel now is not described as a Gaussian. Every single voxel is described as a spherical function. Okay, so a spherical function meaning that it is a distance that we can our signal is around a sphere, okay, and the sphere describes the different distance, the different direction, etc. So as you can see, we get back our equation that we had at the beginning of the little experiment, where here we have E, but here in reality is S, is our signal. We just call it E because it's normalized, but it's our signal. And here you have, instead of having the exponential, which was describing our Gaussian element, now we have a spherical function that is described here. Okay, and CSD is the same principle. They just add a new element, which is RR, which is the response function that describes. So what is the response function? Is here you have an example. So with CSA, you have this type of spherical function here. Okay, for every single voxel. But for CSD, what we do is we look at the fractional anisotropy and we look at pixel, let's say 10% of the pixel, that we are 100% sure about the direction of the water because it's obvious from the literature for everything. And we look at this response function. So we know that for this little amount of voxel, the direction is sure. This is sure that is that. So we use this response function, this a priori fitting, to combine, to use the deconvolution of our spherical function to get some fitter, instead of fat, thinner spherical function. And now that we have a thinner spherical function, it will make it easier for the next step, the tractography step, to choose a direction where to go during the track reconstruction. So you got the main principle, you got the main theory, but I would say, I mean, when I started in this world, I was asking, but okay, you talk about spherical function, but what is a spherical function actually? So a spherical function at the end is just a composition of different spherical harmonic. Okay, and what is how do you get those spherical harmonic? You use the Fourier transform. Okay, and by applying the Fourier transform on your signal, okay, you will get a decomposition of your with spherical harmonic of your signal. So normally, usually, the classical thing is you have time, your signal is like this, and on the specific voxel. So before this is a question that you can get and guess. And here you have your signal, instead of being on the time, it is on the sphere to describe the different distances. Okay. But okay, this is not enough precise. Let's go back of really the basic. What is a Fourier transform? What is a FFT, fast Fourier transform? So the fast Fourier transform is really simple. It helps you to decompose a signal. Okay. So imagine you have your signal here over the time. Okay. You can see it, like I say, as a I like this picture because it's very easy to understand. You have your orchestra here over the time, so full music, and this music you can decompose it in different signals. Okay, this is the same with the radio. So you have a bit of battery, a bit of guitar, a bit of etc. So multiple instruments, and this signal, when you apply the fast Fourier, you just change the space. You say, now before I was in a time space, and I want to get the representation in a frequency space. And now that you have it in another space, you have another description of your signal, and you know that you can describe it here with a specific amplitude, saying that I have here 7 times the battery and 12 times, so it's described in sinus here of the guitar, etc., etc. So the fact that the fast Fourier transform help you to change space and to have a much more easier representation of your data. If you apply a fast Fourier transform in an image, for example, so in image, your domain is not time, it's the pixel value and the pixel position. Okay, so in image, you have all of that. You apply a fast Fourier transform inside the image. Now you start to go in a specific frequency domain and you start to see all the texture of your image. So you see all the big contour actually of your image. So you can see that by applying the equation of Fourier transform, we found back again our signal loss. Here, the exponential, here ft is our signal, and a specific here describing the periodic, the sinusoid, etc. So everything makes sense. We found back, we find back what we have from our initial experiment. So now that we understand this basic principle of fast Fourier transform, we need to apply it on a scanner. So I'll show you the example on an image, now on a scanner. So on a scanner, you are in a Q space that we described. So the Q space, if you see, is your sampling shame. So meaning that before you remember, you can be a multi-shell, single shell, is how many points on your sphere and how many gradients you take to do your scan. That represents your volume. Okay, so you are in your specific space that describes the signal, saying that on the volume 0, on the first volume, you have this, on the 20 volume, you have this value, etc. But this signal, you want to represent it in a different space, so you apply the fast Fourier transform. So instead of being on a Q space, now you enter to the frequency space with the ODF. These ODF frequency space have some norm that we call the basis, meaning that you have the Decoto or MRTX has its own basis also, which describe at this frequency the data is like the shape is like this. Okay, your spherical harmonic is like this. Your spherical harmonic can be like this, like this, like this, like this. And by doing this decomposition, we can build our final result in a single voxel that is a composition of all the different spherical harmonic. Okay? So in theory, if you take every single element of a spherical harmonic, you can build any shape. You could build an elephant, you can build a whatever. You say that I need 10% of this, 5% of this, etc., etc. You position, you accumulate them, and you have your shape. So you can do whatever shape you want with exactly the same principle with signal. You can get whatever music, and etc. etc. So that's how the Fourier transform work, and this is how MRI scanner work actually. How we get from the signal on a specific space, and we reproduce it as a spherical volume, and then we can interpret the water, how the water move. So I come back to this slide where describing the Q space. So before the first experiment in the 60s, we had only one direction. Okay, so this small pulse, and we're coming back. Then we start to have the DTI, where we could describe our tensor with the 3 direction. Okay, and only one strength always, one gradient strength. Then you start to have a different. They start to get crazy with different type of sampling shape to get more and more and more information. And now the most common use cases are this one, the single shell with multiple direction, or the multi-shell with multiple direction. So when a scanner takes the data, for every single point, it takes a picture to give you an idea, and to oversimplify. So in DIPY, of course, we have so many algorithms to explain, to do this fitting. They all follow this principle. We have a documentation with a table explaining does it work in single shell or multi-shell or in the Cartesian. The data used in the paper, if you know your data, and the citation of the paper, so everything that we have implemented. But this year, we implemented a new version, a new fitting model, despite that we have more than 30 models. And this is what we call force. Why we implemented this model? So currently, all the family models are here in the inverse, are the family of the inverse model that you can see here. So what is the inverse model? It means that from the signal, okay, we imply that we imply the tissue. Okay, we try to guess the tissue from the signal. And at the end, when you think about it, for all these models here, the signal is the same, right? And despite that the signal is the same for every model, we try to guess depending on what we want to find. We try to define different mathematical equations to guess a specific tissue or structure that we want to obtain. So we started to introduce force, which is a forward model, meaning that now we are the opposite way. So before we were having the signal and we were guessing the tissue. Now we try to use the physics, so define all the tissue possible that you can have in your brain and guess which, now that we have all the physical tissue, we can generate multiple signal. So actually here we simulate 1 million of signal. And then we try to match the signal that we have from the output to see which one fits the best. Okay, so really it's completely the opposite way of thinking. And because we have a million of signals simulated, we can easily induce all the different maps that we couldn't have before with one single model. So before, with a single model, for example, here in Node, you can have this 3 feature. With DTI, you have the FA, RD, MD classical. With DKI, you have this. So you have to run multiple models if you want to have different metric. Okay. With force, since we have all these metric, you just run it once and you have all it in once. So the goal is to really to unify the diffusion MRI field and stop doing every single model at a time. So here are some results to give you an idea. For example, in Amico, where you get try to get some of the map like the NDI, the ODI. You can see that force reconstruct even better. We don't have some black voxel here that Aniko don't know what signal it is here. Here, an example of DTI, you can see that we can recover the state of art and we can even do better than the state of art. Okay. So here another example also, quickly, just to give you a basic idea of some results. Here an example of an ODF, you can see that because of force and we have so many signals simulated, we can try to avoid those crossing that you have here. You see here, we have a ton of crossing. So for the tractography, it would be hard to find the right path. And now it's more clear. We say, okay, no, it was not a specific crossing. We know that we can go to this direction here. So it is already in DIPY if you want to play with it. And yeah, enjoy, try to install and enjoy. So the next topic. Oh, it's missing something. It shouldn't be that now, sorry. Okay, I will continue because it's soon what time is it? I have
You got about
8 minutes. Ooh, okay. Okay, so yeah, okay. So I wanted to introduce DIPY Auto. This is a new CLI that we build. I would say another pipeline. We already have QSI prep, TractorFlow, all of this. Okay. But the reality is we have different quality of data, we have different anatomy problem, and we have a lot of complexity. So there is not one size fits all on the pipeline. We don't believe that, and that's why we try to build a pipeline that is much more flexible and that lets you adapt following your pathology and your uses and cases. All these pipelines are very great and they give amazing job. They do an amazing job. And however, they are really not flexible, unfortunately. And that's why this is a community request. We didn't want to do that, but we cannot say no every time. So at some point. So how is it built quickly? So it's built on the whole core of what we did, meaning the first the Python for power developers, then the CLI, then DIPY Auto, and then the next step would be DIPY Serge, our user interface. So quickly, he has 3 modes. So the standard mode, predefined mode, where we already built the pipeline for you. This is what we think is state of art. Then you have the interactive mode. So when you do DIPY Auto Interactive, it will ask you a question about your data. And then following your answer, it will start to build your pipeline dynamically. And then you have the custom mode, where here you just use TOML file and you tell what you want to do. So here the classical, what we talked about just before. So here the DIPY Auto Interactive, when it starts to ask you which question, what do you want to use and how do you want to experiment. And here's the developer mode, where you just define what you want in your pipeline and super easy to with a TOML file, and then you go ahead. Of course, like every other pipeline, you have statistical summary report at the end of the pipeline to give you what was good and what was bad. So I won't spend. And the DIPY Serge that is coming, and I will not talk about it. It's coming. It's not yet there. So let's go to the next step, which is tracking. So the good part with the tracking is normally if you did a good reconstruction, is something that you can do with your eyes. Naturally, when you look at this, you can see naturally that you can do this path. So if you cannot do naturally that with your eyes, you know that your preprocessing is bad. Not as easy as that. Okay. So the tracking just try to follow what your eyes can see already. So to do that, he has some requirements. So he need, of course, an ODF. He need a strategy. So how will he pick the different ODF and directions? So sometimes he can take just the highest value of your ODF. Sometimes he can take just a probabilistic part, so not the highest values, but maybe it's better to go slightly on the right, slightly on the left. It takes, of course, a mask to know where you want to track. So some people, sometimes they just want to track a specific region because they look for a specific track. And you need a seeding mask. Seeding mask meaning that is where you start your tracking. Usually we put one seed on every single voxel and we start to track on every single voxel. So a common use is you can also seed only on specific brain region and you let the brain empty. And then you see how these two regions are connected, how your tractography will reach the other region. So this is a really also common use. Of course, you have all the classical parameter, which is a step size, how many angle you allow, etc., etc. I don't want to talk about the challenge of tractography, which is when you have some crossing like this. So imagine here you have a bunch of crossing here. How do you interpret that? So this is really the big challenge of the tractography. Do you pass on diagonal? Do you do a small curve? So actually, this is those kind of challenge that the tractography try to resolve because the reconstruction method don't give us enough information for that. So DIPY command line, now you get it. And this is the type of result that you get. Here is two different method. There is some probabilistic, there is some more deterministic typography, and you can see that they give you more or less track. I won't talk about visualization. Now we go to the post-processing part. So now that we have our track, our connectome, we need to start to analyze it and to get some statistic. So what we want to do is from this connectome, try to get every single bundle of your brain and get some statistical analysis along the brain. Okay. To do so, you will need an atlas. Okay. That there is two strategies. There is one strategy where you start from a specific atlas when you have your bundle and you try to search for them. Of course, you need a reference brain, a reference bundle already segmented, and then with your brain that your connectome that you just get, you try to register it in the reference brain, and then since in this reference brain you already have all the bundle, then you do the same search. So this is one technique. Another technique will be just using a clustering algorithm. So you get your full brain and you say, I want all the bundle in a specific distance. And the cluster will see, oh, okay, these bundles are too far, etc., etc. And you will be able to find all your bundle. So here, this is a whole process where that we have as a CLI. So you have your brain that you just modelize, you have your target, which is the state of art, your atlas. You try to register it, okay, using DIPY SLR. So we don't register images, I insist. We register really already the track. When it's registered, we try to recognize the different bundle, okay, and then we slowly refine them. When we have every single bundle, it's time to do some tractometry. So meaning that we try to get some stats. There is different technique. There is IFQ. Here I show Buan. Tractometry starts to be a big field in diffusion MRI, and there is really multiple technique about that. How can you add the FA? How can you project the FA on your bundle, and what does it show it to you, for example? So the fractional anisotropy that we saw at the beginning. So here it is an example.
we're on the test schedule today.
Yeah.
unfortunately, So,
Let me see. Yeah, I think I finished. Yeah, I finished. Yeah, I'm done.
all right.
So,
Sorry,
yeah.
sorry to have to.
No problem. It's me. I was too long. I'm sorry for that. Also, the connection disturbed me a lot.
Yeah. That's
But yeah, so this was the idea. I wanted to look what next quickly on DIPY, what is coming. So the principal thing that is coming is try to make everything more simpler. Of course, we have our say geeky part to develop more algorithm to make it more faster, but also try to make the use of our tool more simpler. In the ideal world, we want a user to use LLM and say, I have this data, please, I want to visualize the Arculus fasciculus. Can you do it? And then the LLM will be connected to DIPY. DIPY will do all the processing, open the visualization by himself, and show you the specific bundle. So this is what we aim to do to make life simpler and give some stats. For that, you need to be. We need the help of everyone, of course, here. So if you want to contribute, you are more than welcome. And yeah, I will stop here. We have a workshop every year. Next one is 2027. Thank you everyone for listening. Sorry if I was fast. And if you have any question, come to see me. I'm there until Saturday. So.